Man, am I excited for the episode today. We got Zack Bowden on the podcast today, a conversation I've been looking forward to for a long time. Zack's 30 years old, served in the Air Force for 6 years, which is awesome. Can't wait to dive into that. Thank you for your service, by the way.
Thank you.
He grew up in Cleveland, just outside Cleveland, Ohio, with 9 brothers and 6 sisters, which before this, I actually had no clue. So I'm excited to talk about his life growing up. And then right now he's an online fitness coach helping men grow physically, spiritually, and mentally. So he's been doing that for 4 years? 5?
Yeah, 5-6 years at this point now. I mean, to some degree 10 years, but really intentionally I'd say for about 5-6.
Okay, intentionally 5-6. And so the last 4 years he's been studying apologetics, and he's looking to get his master's in that to actually help men grow even more in their faith journey and just people in general. So
wow, that was impressive. I wrote that down and you got that memorized well. That's good.
No, but I'm super excited. So basically I'll give us a little explanation how we met. So I think it's God working. I'm your host, Paul McCarran, and the whole thing with the process, it's the process of me gaining knowledge and gaining wisdom. My guests are going to provide the knowledge and the wisdom, and I'm doing work at the same time to gain knowledge and wisdom. Process of 2 to 3 years down the line, now I'm providing knowledge and wisdom along with the guests. Welcome to Process Podcast, obviously, because he came to our RYA event, Radiant Young Adults, and what were the odds that he was going to come? Because that actually isn't even his home church. His buddy said, hey, you want to come to this with me? And he pulled up, introduced myself, and next thing you know, we hit a lift. And so this is actually really our only second time, like really chopping it up. But the first time felt like, I don't know, it's equivalent to probably 5, 6, 7 times hanging out, you know?
For sure. We had chemistry immediately, just kept going back and forth, dove into the podcast. We talked a little bit about your journey. It was great. That was great.
Yeah. And so at this point in your life, I mean, the things you're doing, the steps, I'm looking up to them for sure, especially your journey into how deep you're diving into the word on a daily basis is something I'm aspiring to, and just like want to even just like pick your brain today about it. But like, so why Jesus? What sparked this love for Jesus? What has cemented you here?
I tried everything else and it didn't fill me up. And you hear it often, right? It's like, you can't make enough money to make you happy. We get told that often enough for us to know that that's not the way, but we just don't believe it. We don't want to. The word tells us that we love darkness, and we hold on to the beliefs that we have. And I held on to that belief that, I could make enough money, I could get enough status, I could get the right woman, and it would fill me up. None of it did. And I had success in all of them. Made a bunch of money, didn't fill me up. Had a great relationship, or what I thought was one. She looked good, I looked good. We were the model, perfect goals couple. We were a couple goals put together, and it wasn't a relationship built on the right things. And I denied that. I ignored it. My friends could tell me I ignored it, and it didn't fill me. It didn't. And I was consistently looking to the world to fill me, and I got to the end of it too many times. And I was pretty stubborn in that too, I admit. However, when I kind of got to my end, I had an encounter with Jesus that I can't necessarily explain, except for those who maybe walk with him already, and understanding that conviction comes from the Holy Spirit. That is part of the Holy Spirit's mission. In, I believe it's John chapter 16, Jesus talks to his disciples about the mission of the Holy Spirit, and that is to convict the world of sin. That is for us to be able to see and come into relationship with Jesus, from him making the reality of Jesus's life, death, and resurrection, who he is, who God is, a reality in yourself. And he did that to me for sure. And I believe that everyone to some degree can experience that personal experience. That's part of his mission. And I did. And it changed everything for me a little bit in the beginning, not in every way. It wasn't all this once, because it was a pursuit after that, which you and I talked about. But I was at the end of the world, and I wanted to find something that actually did fulfill me. And through my relationship with him over many years, this is since 2020 when I really shifted into it, I found significantly more peace in life. So much more peace. I found deeper relationships. Guys have a struggle to get deep sometimes. I can get deep with them immediately almost, because of the relationship of Jesus being that foundation. Building relationships on faith with someday, I want to be married. And I know building it on him is a significantly more trustworthy foundation than building it on the world. And now that I've been to the end of the other road, I'm not going back. Sometimes I struggle with it, but it's a little easier not to because I know that it's not going to fail me.
Yeah, you get that idea, like that doubt kind of creeps in, but it's super easy the closer you grow to Jesus to like push that doubt out.
Yes.
Because that's what the devil, he like, I see some of the guys that like I'm hanging out with me. It's like the devil's gonna work extra hard because he sees how much potential you have to change the world.
Yeah.
And so it's like the devil's gonna plant doubt and fear into your mind more than he's gonna work on other people.
That's facts. And we get it wrong. Sometimes it depends on where you grow up and what church you go to and how you come to Jesus. But a lot of people believe that walking in a relationship with Jesus or believing in Christianity would equal an easier life. In fact, I found it to be the exact opposite. There's more suffering because now you actually are going against what almost everyone else is doing and believing in and walking in a completely opposite direction.
From the whole world.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of suffering in that because your relationships aren't the same. You don't necessarily believe in the same stuff. And it's not that you can't love those people because we're called to, but you're just not walking in the same direction, and that's not easy. There's a lot of friction there.
Yeah, I would say it's a harder path, but it brings more peace. Mm-hmm. It's like the more you put in, the more you're going to get out of it.
Absolutely.
It's like, for me, like a lot of things are extremely hard. Like walking in purity, it's like extremely hard, and you can't do that yourself. And like I'm reading a book called A Covenant with My Eyes. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. I might recommend it to you after this, but it's great. But basically it says that we don't have the power to like vow to like to purity. It's like we have to lean on Christ for that ability. And when I've found myself like leaning on Christ to be pure now and like pursuing Jesus, like running towards him instead of like looking back and running away from something, that was when I could like walk in purity. And that was like the biggest thing. And it's like, it's a hard life to live, especially when, so basically the premise of the book is making a covenant with your eyes to the Lord, saying, I will not like indulge myself in like whatever, taking another look at like a female or this or that. And so it's like, you're making this vow to the Lord and doing that, whereas the world, there's nothing wrong with in the worldly view, like looking at a girl not getting caught and like looking again and looking again. But when you make this covenant, it's like you can't control the first look. We're instinctually going to look. Yep. But the covenant with the Lord is that no matter what you're feeling, your fleshly desires, your fear of the Lord, it talks about a gas pedal and a brake pedal.
That's
and the
good.
Gas pedal is running towards Jesus. The brake pedal is the fear of the Lord. And so this fear of the Lord is like, no, don't look back. And so you don't look back and you just continue to, because it opens the eye gate. So it talks about how temptation for like, I guess the sexual side of things is through the eyes. And so when it's going through the eyes, through the eye gate, it opens up the mind to all these possibilities or these fantasies. But if you just close that at the eye gate, you don't look back, it doesn't even allow for any of those fantasies or those thoughts or temptations to creep in.
Wow. How has that changed you? Because you've applied this, yes?
I have not. So it talks about the importance of the significance of making a vow or a covenant with the Lord. So it's going to be a formal or a written agreement.
That's good.
So I'm almost done with the book, but I'm going to keep praying over it. So it talks about the difference between a resolve and a vow. And resolve is like a very strong like will, but a vow is like you're promising to the Lord in formal or written agreement. And so I'm like, man, this is serious. So I'm almost through the book. I'm going to keep praying on it and keep like, I think maybe give myself another month or so. I've been walking in purity for almost 2 months now. Right. And I'm just going to realize how much emphasis making this covenant or vow would be. I like the patient
game that you're playing too. Because a lot of times, I mean, you and I are both like the jump in the pool kind of guys, right? We're not going to.
Yeah, we don't want to be impulsive because I've done impulsive things. But this is where I've started to learn in my life, hey, emotional decisions can make me be impulsive. Let's think about this for a long time.
Yeah, and when you take that time to think about it and then you step in, it's so much better. You have more peace with it, and you can stand stronger. And walking in purity isn't easy. It's not. It's very, very, very difficult. And making a vow at that level and choosing to not indulge with your eyes in women in that way can change so much. It's not I always try to make it a challenge, specifically in the gym. So hard too, right? When there's so many worldly like girls who are showing off specifically for that. And I think what has happened for me is it comes in steps, right? It's the first step was, okay, I'm walking with Jesus. I kind of know I'm not supposed to do this. I don't really know that much. I'm a baby. The word talks about us feeding on milk. I don't understand this. Then I come into the understanding of, okay, I probably really am not supposed to do this. It would probably be better for me not to look. And and I still look anyways.
And you feel bad about it.
And you do feel bad about it. And what happened for me at a certain point was I would look, still feel bad about it, but I started to not be attracted to women in that way and moving out of the idealization of that being a potential wife for me. Sure, I can look at that woman and she's probably a great person. There's nothing wrong with her at all. And I don't mean it in that there's something wrong with her just because of the way she dresses. However, for me, looking for a wife, someone who walks with the Lord, that is a red flag. Not a yellow flag, it's a red flag. I would want someone who really is just going to show that to me. All right. And I go to the gym all the time. I have my shirt off all the time.
Yeah.
I get it. Wear shorts. I get that. But there's a way. There's a certain level. And for me, I started to realize like, all right, I'm no longer attracted to these women. And it then allowed me to get to the point where I'm not going to look at them. In fact, I'm going to look at the opposite direction after the first look. Because like you said, the first look it's instinctual. It's like I'm aware of my surroundings. Like, oh, all right.
Yeah. And the hard thing for me was like differentiating between I'm looking lustfully, I guess, in a sense, or am I just like looking, you know? And so it's like figuring out that line, but also realizing, hey, I can still look at a girl and like admire her beauty, but it's when it starts to become lustful thoughts. But one thing I want to ask you, because I know like obviously social media, the gym. So something I was actually convicted of the other day, just at the gym, never felt convicted of this. I talked to a buddy about it. I think I talked about this on the last episode a little bit with someone, but basically I was sitting there with my shirt off and I've never felt convicted of it before. I actually felt conviction of my shirt off after reading this book, and like it talks to us about in the word not leading others into sin. The odds of a girl looking at me lustfully, not very high, but it's like you don't want to lead other sisters or brothers of Christ into sin. So if they happen to be doing that, but the thing that actually hit me was like, I personally don't want my future spouse dressing this way. So what would my future spouse wouldn't walk up to me if I had my shirt off? Like, how would she think? Like, if I don't want other guys looking at her that way, what if other girls do happen to be looking at me that way? And so I felt conviction in that aspect. And I was wondering what your thoughts are being in the gym, because like a lot of your a lot of what you're building is revolved around the gym.
Right, it is. So when I first started to work with clients and guys and females, it was always physical goals. It was, I want to look a certain way. Now, generally speaking, when a guys want to look a certain way, it's about attracting the opposite sex, right? One of the first things you see with anyone, because you can't see their personality, it's very difficult to have an idea of what their spirit is like. There's a spiritual connection that can happen from the eye, but it's typically physical, right? That is the first thing we see. And I used to struggle with the idea at a certain point in my walk with Christ of helping people look better so they could attract the opposite sex, as that being the main foundation of what they wanted. So I reverted pretty aggressively to not wanting to work with people who had such physical goals. So much so that I actually stepped out of fitness for a while, deleted my social media. It was a whole different perspective for me. And coming back into it now with the light that I've been able to come to, meaning and understanding, I have a different perspective on it, right? And I do think that foundationally it comes down to the way a person thinks about it. So if you are convicted by it, because every relationship with God is very individual. It is 100%. Very individual, and I don't think we give enough credit to, right? I don't drink alcohol, not because the word tells us we can or we won't go to heaven, because it doesn't say that anywhere in there. No. It's more so I don't, because I don't really see the benefit for it. For me, 30 years old, I probably would have a hangover. It wouldn't be that bad, but I don't want to experience that. It doesn't allow me to be as sharp. So I don't indulge in it, literally ever. So
when was the last time did you ever drink?
Yeah. Oh, so much before. But I mean, you know, like people get a little older, you kind of stop, your lifestyle switches. That was part of it. And then people ask me now, do you not drink because of your faith? I don't think so. I don't believe that's the reason. I just don't find pleasure in it. I don't find...
well, you feel horrible the next day, or even just slightly off. But also, let's say, because there's nothing against drinking. Right. The word says that it's a sin to get drunk, but actually, Jesus provides wine at the Last Supper.
It does, yes.
And it's a gift. It's a gift. So it's like finding that balance. I guess for me, I've been sober since I think a little bit before July 15th. That's when I started 75 hard. And man, I'm like the most fulfilled, joy-filled I've ever been. And dude, all I wanted to do when I was in college, when I was going out drinking 3 nights a week, was stop drinking. But it was always because someone else was urging me to go out. Someone else was like, we have 3 more weeks. And so when I started the 75 hard challenge and took that out of my life for good, I was like, man, I'm living the lifestyle I want. Right. And it wasn't maybe faith-based at first, but by taking drinking out of my life, oh man, I would say that was the start, along with 3 or 4 different factors of just like giving my life to Christ, because drinking and like altering the state of your mind opens you up to temptations.
Yes.
It opens you up to making decisions that aren't rational.
Yes.
All these things. So I would say like that has been the biggest thing. I don't miss it at all. The one thing I will say is I'm not going to say I never will drink again.
Exactly.
Because I think
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I've never had a problem with it. The one thing that I'll say is like if me and my fiance were on a trip to like Italy down the line, like God willing, we're like whatever, we're on the honeymoon or whatever it is. It's like if there's a glass of wine in Italy, like I don't want to say I'll never drink again, because that's something I could really enjoy, like a glass or two of wine down the line.
And that's where I'm at right now. It's like people are like, are you gonna drink? Probably not, but I will. Like I'm not fully against it. I think the last time I drank was sometime last year, late last year. It's so not important to me that I don't even remember. But that's my point here, is that it's not a vice for me. It's not. However, for some people, some people drink, they have a sip of alcohol, and it's a deeper sin for them because sin separates us from God. And what might be a vice for them is not a vice for me. However, me knowing that, being in a relationship with a guy who might struggle with that, we're never going to do anything that I would say, oh yeah, let's go get a drink. I wouldn't say that anyways, but do you understand my point?
Yeah.
So bringing it back to the shirt off point. If you go to the beach, are you going to have your shirt off?
Yeah, I will. And so I was actually thinking about that the other day, because I was like, man, well, what? I think it's the way about it, right?
Yes.
It's like, what am I doing? Why is my shirt off?
Yes.
Is it because I'm seeking validation from the female in front of me?
There you go.
Because I'm seeking validation from the other males to try to show something? Or is it just because I do believe most of the time, like I was skinny, fat, kind of like 5'1". I grew, I gained confidence in the gym. So for the most part, I was like, man, I get to see my progress.
Yes.
But what percentage of it was it like, oh, I'm trying to show off for someone else that I felt convicted maybe was the thing I had to dive into?
Right.
And so it's like really diving into those thoughts. So I haven't really dissected it, but now.
What do you think? What do you think? I mean, because self-examination is the key, I would say, to all of it anyways. For me, it's not, I do it for inspiration for other guys to want to grow in discipline. That is my ground inside of it. It is not for women of the opposite sex. To be honest with you, if that's the most important thing for them, I'm probably attracted to the wrong person anyways.
100%.
But my heart, and it's grown into this, it didn't start there, is inspiring other men to want to grow in discipline, specifically, and also live a healthier lifestyle, right? Maybe in their mind, I just want abs. In my head, I understand why you want that, but there's a healthy lifestyle that comes with that. And there's discipline that you grow in. On a spiritual level, you grow in the fruit of the Spirit, self-control, which a lot of people overlook. That's my ground, and I know that. What's yours?
Yeah, so I think mine, for the longest time, why I started working out, why I did everything, and I've talked about this maybe a little bit on the podcast briefly, but was to prove people wrong. So it all came from proving people wrong, proving people that the 5'1" kind of skinny fat guy, could do well in business, could do well in school, could do well in the gym, could actually build a physique. And so for the longest time, I was driven by these negative things. And it took a lot of self-reflection back in 2023, actually, when I was saved. When I was saved, I was going to therapy. I was doing all this journaling and self-reflection. And man, I was like, I'm trying to prove everyone wrong. And so now I started doing it for myself, and I could flip it and really realize, and I think there's still a piece of me that when you're in the gym, you're still, as much as I think you don't want to ever be fueled fully by negative factors or those negative whys, I think if you can repurpose them, it can be pretty powerful. But I think there's still a piece that maybe that conviction was coming from, oh, you're still trying to maybe show your physique off here a little bit. And maybe that's what the conviction's from. But for me, in the meantime, I'm just like, wear some baggy clothing and health. So I'm a big believer that God gives us one body. We should steward that body. Just as we should steward the money he gives us, we should steward everything. And so how you do with a little is what you do with a lot. And so in my morning time this morning with the Lord abiding, I was reading it. I used the Blue Letter Bible to help me with a word. So I had the word that kind of,
I have it on my phone too. It's on the bottom of the screen.
Yeah. So I looked up the word that just kind of creeped in my head today was health. And so I looked up health, and it was 1 Samuel 16:12. And it talks about when God's looking for, it was when he was deciding to pick between David and his brothers. And so he was seeking out someone's heart, but it also described David as a man who was looked of great health, glowing health, as along with he had handsome features. And so I kind of made a note of that, and I was like, because that word of the day, and I was like, glowing health, that's something we can all can control. And so I think it's so important to just steward what you're eating, like enjoy life, enjoy the balance. But I was just like, man, like when God picked David, it was after his own heart, but it also showed how David kept himself in glowing health with handsome features. And I think especially as men, we can take great care of ourselves, put on use deodorant, wear nice clothes, do your laundry. Like you can look pretty, like you can upgrade yourself, and not 100%. In a bad sense, but like taking care and stewarding your looks and your body to how like it represents 100%. God well.
I'm with you. Have you ever heard the saying, how you do anything is how you do everything?
Yeah, so, I've heard that.
A bit of a curveball, but I think we can bring it back and you understand it. Have you ever seen the movie, it's with Denzel Washington. It's like something goes wrong and he ends up putting up Equalizer. Have you ever seen The Equalizer?
I've never seen it.
Okay, so Denzel Washington plays a character, and I've watched this movie a bunch of times, right? I was watching it again, and one of the things I noticed was how dialed in he was, how sharpened he was. Me and you talk about semen retention and walking in purity and the benefits of those things. So I asked ChatGPT, I'm like, okay, is he doing this? Because there was a scene where there was a girl who got on the bus, and most guys would take a second look.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he took a first look, but you could see for sure he didn't take the second. And they depicted that in that scene, I believe, intentionally. So I'm like, all right, let me see is this what he does? And basically the character behind all of it was extremely dialed in to self-control in a way that is unmatched. Everything he does is intentional. His watch, he would time whenever he would actually fight back and basically kill people, but it was always in a retributive way. He was defending someone who didn't deserve the punishment that they got. And I used to think that was the purpose of the movie, and in some ways it is. But the thing that I realized that I love so much about the movie was the level of self-control that he had honed and gathered together. And what I learned from that is he ate good food. He was intentional about what he brought into his mind on a daily basis. He was intentional about the habits and the time that he actually put into things. Everything he did was on par. So whenever something came in outside of that, he could better discern how it's going to impact or what's going on inside of his life and make a calculated decision. It was never driven by emotion.
Yeah.
There was no impulsivity. And I love that because what I relate that to is the slippery slope of sin or the slippery slope of passivity and falling into a way for a man specifically, because I am a man, I can speak in that way, is the negative side effects of choosing what we choose. Meaning, okay, I know that if I have a donut, that it's going to taste absolutely amazing, right? It's going to taste great. It's going to fire everything off inside of my body. My dopamine is going to go insane, right? I'm going to be addicted to that donut to some degree, not only because of the stuff they put inside of food in the United States of America. However, there's the dopamine rush on just a biochemical level that all of us have and respond to. And here's the issue, though. I become addicted to that, and I think we all can agree, addicted to something that is not good for me. And even if I'm not addicted to it, because you might think of addiction like, oh, I need it and I don't want it, I'm more likely to want to go back to eat it again.
100%.
Just by having it that one time. Yeah. Right? Now, I know myself to know that I do have an addictive personality depending on something that's good. I jump in the pool or I don't put my foot in it. I've learned to balance more, but there's certain stuff I stay away from. And here's the reason. Denzel Washington's character chose to live a life of intention with everything he did. And the fruit of that was everything was calculated. The decisions were made in a calculated way. Now, we're human. We're not going to be perfect. But it supports the idea of us being more intentional about what we put in our body, because there are foods that can help us move forward and foods that can move us away or in a bad direction from a health perspective, a mental perspective. So I chose carnivore, right? Simple, healthy foods. Occasionally I'll eat outside of it. Yeah. 90-10, I would say. And also when it comes to women or the trying to be passive about, if I look, it doesn't really do anything to me. I've realized it does. I no longer I changed my playlist. I don't listen to mostly secular music anymore. I deleted my entire workout playlist from a decade, which is insane.
Yeah, we talked about that.
It wasn't easy. Now I listen to cleaner music. It has changed my thought processes. It has changed the way I look at the world. I look at women less, and I have a different response to it. I'm more grounded. Everything is more intentional. Now, there's fruit from that. And the fruit of that is very simple. Self-control, and that is fruit of the Spirit.
Yeah. Galatians 5:22, I think.
Yeah. And we look past it too much in that if I just do it this one time, if I don't wake up early today, or if I don't go to the gym today, if I don't, because maybe you don't feel like it. And again, from an empathetic standpoint as a coach, I do understand. But what happens if you woke up anyways?
Yeah.
What happens if you went to the gym anyways? Would you die?
I bet you'd feel better.
Every time the answer is always that.
Yeah. And so that's like a battle I've been going through personally. And like, is one, I'm trying to dial back in right now. We talked a little bit about being out of routine, but man, I would give myself excuses, and I would be like, and so I'm 23, so you got 7 years of kind of experience in dialing in on me. But basically the thing that I've been fighting with is I got this schedule where some nights I'm in bed by 9:30, some nights I'm going to bed at 3 based on my work. So it's like trying to figure this out. I think I've got a system. I'm not going to like say it on here. Well, it's whatever. My new system I'm trying to implement is that no matter what, unless I have something committed to in the morning, when I go to sleep, when I put my phone down, I set my alarm for 7 hours and 45 minutes.
That's beautiful.
That's a perfect amount of sleep. So I'm literally just starting to implement this, and it doesn't matter if I go to bed at 3, but I need that sleep, period. But there's when I wake up, because that's the set amount of sleep that one is recommended for adults my age to grow, to be healthy, all these things. But two, since I've set that, there's no excuse like, oh, I didn't get enough sleep. Oh, I'm too tired. It's like, because I was doing this thing where I'd go to bed at 3. Oh, I got something at 7. Now I get 3 hours of sleep, which I'll have a couple caveats to it. Like if I have church in the morning, I might not get that, but that's like a must. Like that's why I love it. But also it's like I'm waking up for that, and I'm not going to get my full amount of sleep. But otherwise, that's the number one. But anyways, my thing was I was trying to, give myself excuses. But now I've built a system to where 7 hours and 45 minutes of sleep, that's how much I get. I wake up no matter what. There's no excuse. And so that, along with, man, I do love I ate a donut this morning. I can't even lie.
Yeah.
But I'm a balance. But my thing is when I start to, it does open that door. The amount of self-control you have to have one donut and then just walk home and really enjoy that balance is a lot. So I think if you can do that, but when you start to indulge, then you start to become fleshly.
It's the indulgence, right? And that's one. If something can happen once, it may never happen again. If something can happen twice, it will surely happen a third, fourth, and fifth time.
Yeah.
I learned that from the book, The Alchemist. Great book.
Okay.
But I want to ask you a question from what you just said, because I think it kind of illustrates the point. When you were making excuses or trying to push yourself to wake up early sometimes, or maybe sleeping longer than you ever wanted to, how did you feel?
Yeah. So I guess it depends on the day, right? Like sometimes I would be super ambitious because a lot of times what I find is you're a lot more ambitious going to sleep than when you are waking up, just by nature, because you're half asleep when you wake up.
Right, that's good.
So I would be going to bed at 3, and I'd be like, I'm feeling it right now, because I'd be off a shift, I'd be moving all night, 30,000 steps, whatever it is, and I'd be like, okay, we'll get up at 6.
Yep.
3 hours of sleep. I don't need sleep, whatever. You come and you wake up in that morning, and either I pop up and I'm exhausted the next day. So I guess I get up and I'm loyal to like what I said that last night, but then the next day drags. The next day I'm not fully there, or I hit that alarm off, and next thing you know, I'm waking up at 12 or 1, which actually happened the other day. It was because we were supposed to hop on a call, and I mean, to be completely honest, I hit my alarm off. The second alarm didn't go off when I was supposed to hop on the call, and that's what happened, because I worked till I think 3 a.m. that night, and I was too ambitious when I wanted to wake up. Hit the first one off. The second one, I woke up, it was like 12, and the alarm was just going off, but with no noise, because I was do not disturb. Yeah. So that's what happened. And so it's like,
how'd you feel?
Yeah, well, one, I felt horrible, because for me, I'm a very on-time person. I'm a very, I don't like to let people down. I'm a I wouldn't say I'm a full people pleaser, but I definitely don't want to be late to things. I don't like.
You respect everyone's time.
Yeah, I respect people so highly. So like, I'm sure you could probably tell, but I felt
100%.
I felt horrible, man. Like, especially when we made that commitment a couple of days ago, missed that call, and I was like, that's disrespectful on my side. But the Lord gives us grace. The Lord and good friends, good people give each other grace as well. Yep. And so that's where I could realize it. But man, it makes me feel bad. And so that's where it's like, I'm really trying to dial in my life in a sense where it's like, it's always a work in progress. You're going to mess up.
100%.
But it's like, how can I? So like this morning, first day of implementing this, popped right up. And I'm not even going to lie. I walked back to my bed. I was like, am I going to get back in? And I went, nah. And I just like, put my sheet down. Yeah. I walked right around, started making my protein shake, sat down to spend some time with the Lord, and then went to my men's business leader group, which hopefully you can maybe pop out to soon.
That's going to happen.
But it was amazing. Yep. So yeah.
I'm curious now then, because okay, you understand that you're going, 7 hours and 45 minutes of sleep each night.
Yeah.
Right? That's the goal. Sometimes there are windows where you make compromises, which is understandable. They're intentional compromises. We're not doing these things by accident and hoping that they land right.
Yeah.
So then now if you're looking back, knowing that on a Friday night you would work till 3 a.m., so I guess into Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Would you have rescheduled the call for a different time initially?
100%.
And that is the foundation of the point. Everything becomes intentional because you are now being intentional.
Yeah.
Fruit of intentionalness is more intention, and good results and more peace that you're just talking about you get knowing that, all right, I would probably sleep till go to bed at 3, you'd wake up
10:45.
10:45. Right. We scheduled our call for 10 a.m.? 11 a.m., right? It's probably a little close because you probably prefer to sit down, read the word, slowly wake up, get your day going. Maybe we had our call at noon or 1. And I could have done that.
Yeah.
And it's knowing those things, but also being able to look past the people pleaser in us, because I understand that struggle too, and telling a person, no, hey, that's a great time, but I can't do that because I have commitments I'm going to stick to. Let's do 1. Can you do that instead?
Yeah.
But it all starts from our own self being willing to set boundaries and understand how we operate and holding to that, because by doing that, not only do you have more peace, I have more peace knowing that you're going to show up with me at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock.
Yeah. No, and that leads me into kind of a question. We kind of worked out at the beginning of this year, and you had mentioned the word of the year to me. And so I know your word of the year, but basically I went home that night. I was in the shower. I was just thinking. I was thinking the shower. I think it's a good place. My mentor Wayne talks about how the shower, the warm water hits the back of your head. It produces theta waves. It produces creativity. Anyways, I was thinking in the shower, and the first word I thought of, I actually documented on the podcast, was growth. And I don't think I've come back here and said it, but I was really thinking about it. We had a message, and it was called "Build the Boat" by Noah Herron. I was like, growth's good, but it's kind of me, right? And so the word I ended up landing on for this year was intention.
Wow. That's crazy.
That's
crazy after what we just talked about.
So that's where I'm just getting better every day. I'm not perfect, but being intentional with who I spend time with, being intentional with what goes into my brain,
Amen. Being
intentional with. So I want to dive into, I know yours, but what's your word of the year? What kind of fueled you to start this? I think you said it was Stephen Furtick was the one who kind of introduced you. Was it
for agape, love?
Oh, yeah. That was your word.
Yeah, so agape. So I can't even remember how I came to it, but I knew it was the word of the year as soon as it kind of just landed on me. And it's written on my whiteboard at home. I have a giant one similar to the one that you have there. I couldn't help but smile because I'm like, wow, we're the same.
Very similar.
We're very similar. I was like, this is crazy. And agape is a Greek word inside of the New Testament that they use to describe love. And it means you want the best for someone else. And it's interesting because before I used to think of that as such a selfless level of selflessness that is just incomprehensible, to where I would sacrifice all of me to be able to just do everything for everyone else. And that, we both know, is just, it can get very unhealthy. Because then you're not taking care of yourself and you're literally drowning. And I've come to realize that for me to do the best for someone else, I also, and I don't say first, because I do believe the other person still comes first, and that's grounded in the word. I also have to make sure I take care of myself so that I can take care of them. And I have to be intentional with it.
So one thing Pastor Aaron said, which I think is going to really resonate with you here, was about this. He called it joy. So joy is Jesus, others, than you. And I think if you prioritize Jesus, your cup's going to overflow.
Right.
Then you can pour what overflows into others, and then therefore you're already taken care of. And so I think it's prioritizing Jesus, which is going to take care of you. So it's not maybe you in front of others. It's actually just prioritizing Jesus in your life.
The head of all.
That translates to others, and then you're just by chance filled, through that.
Right. And he's the one who does fill the cup. He makes our cup overflow. And when we can realize that, if you can lean into someone who is a firm foundation, really the foundation of everything that exists, you're absolutely right. I love that because it does fill you. And sticking to that is so important, so you can pour into the people who need you. And that's part of being intentional, which is good. Now, so your word is intention, right? So when did you come to that? And actually, let me ask that first. When did you come to it? Because it could have been this morning. But,
So, man, I shared this with a couple buddies, but I was in a little rut, man. I'm not gonna lie. I was in a rut for Friday, Saturday, working, and I don't know. I've been the highs have been so high, or not so high, but I've been level at this ups and starting this thing, but I hit this rut and I hadn't been feeling like this for a while. And so it was growth. And then I was going to this Sunday service. I was like, man, I really need this service. I need this. And so we had a guest speaker, Noah Herron. So I read his book. It's Holy Habits. So I ended up getting that after I read through the whole thing. It's an amazing book. So I'll recommend people to read it. But basically this message was build the boat. And it talks about Noah. Gave the sermon about Noah from building the ark and how it took him what biblical scholars think 120 to 140 years to build the ark. And it's like, what is the boat you're building this year? That was the premise of the message. And I was like, that night, man, I was like kind of lonely. I don't know. I was just feeling all these different things, to just be completely quite honest. And I didn't really know where they're coming from, why I was feeling them. And something I've wanted for a long time is a dog. And so you're probably like, where's this going? But seriously, I was impulsively feeling these emotions of being like lonely or like wanting the X, Y, or Z, missing my dogs back home. And I was like, I'm going to get a dog. And literally I was probably a couple clicks away. I called my mom first, which my mom, I'm so fortunate to have her, and that she kind of grounds me when I do start to make these emotional decisions. She's like, look, I'm not against you getting a dog, but just don't buy that one right now. And she was like, okay. So Saturday night, I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I went to sleep, went to this message, build the boat. I don't know why, but it was the most clear, like everything just restored. Just in like Psalm 23, it says, Jesus refreshes my soul. Or like, yeah, he refreshes my soul. And like literally he refreshed everything that morning. Like snap, boom, refreshed my soul. And I was like, what boat are you building? I was like, man, what am I thinking? Like, I can't get a dog. I need to be, spending time with the Lord every morning. That's number one, getting closer to the Lord. But two, it's like I'm building this boat of the process, the podcast. Yeah. That's what's on my plate. Like, as much as I would love a dog, that's going to get in the way. Same thing, he talks about singleness, all these things people get distracted by, but what boat are you building this year? And so I think that made me realize like intention about what I'm doing and intention about who I'm spending time with, intention where I'm spending my time. And at the end of the day, a dog's something I'll get down the line, God willing. And same with like the singleness factor. If like the right girl walks in my life and she it's like from the Lord, she fears the Lord, and she she understands what I'm pursuing, like I would love that. But don't focus on those things, focus on the boat you're building. And I think intention was just in my head, and I was like, man, intention with everything, what I'm building this boat this year. Yes. So that's where I landed on that word. That's good. And so I'm a person who, when I feel emotions, I can make impulsive decisions, and I realize that. And I've realized that more recently, so it's good to know.
It's good that you're realizing it. It took me 30 years, maybe 28 to really realize it. Yeah. I'm like, that was a huge, my best friends, all of my mentors, my family, they would tell me all the time, in a bunch of different ways, whatever you set your heart to, Zach, you can do it. Yeah. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter what it is. If you put your heart to it, you can do it. You just got to stick with it. The biggest distraction for me was very clear, and I knew it for a very long time, but I still kept running back to it. Girls. Every single time. And it wasn't, I kind of came to realize this. Did me and you talk about idealization? I don't think so, because I don't think I came to the revelation. No, but I think I know. After.
Yeah, I want to hear where you're going with it.
So what happened was through some reflection and in getting to understand that I honestly, it really started with a dream, I would say, because I was struggling with something internally of where I'm putting relationships in my priorities of what I want to do. I look at my goals, and I got out of a marriage when I got divorced in 2023, November. This is when we split, right? So when we got out of the relationship, it took some time and really didn't take any time and tried to date, right? And I was kind of I started to notice patterns about myself. I started to realize I'm putting women in the wrong place. And that was kind of the beginning of it. And I would date a girl, realize something I didn't like about her, break up with her. Date a girl, think it was great, realize something I didn't like about her, break up with her. Pretty much each time. And because I realized at a certain point that this was a pattern, I had to self-examine. What is going on?
Yeah, a lot of people are like, what's wrong with these people? You had to like look and like, yes, what flaws are in me?
What's going on? Because I'm the only consistent part. Yeah. And I had a dream regarding it, and Jordan Peterson, have you heard of him before? All right, he was in the dream. It was very interesting. I just wanted to ask him, how can I get over this? Like, how can I get through this? So I wanted to do a little bit of research on Jordan Peterson. Not the next day, actually the day after. I just kind of sat on it a little bit. Didn't want to be impulsive with it.
Yeah.
And prayed on it. And what I had come to find Jordan Peterson in a video, he was talking to his daughter, Michaela, and they were breaking down a struggle that he had when he was in college. And he had dated 2 or 3 girls, and he broke up with them in like a 6-month time frame. And I'm like, dang, I dated more girls than 2 or 3 in a 6-month time frame. I guess this was maybe 1990, 1980. So it's a little different of a time. However, that's still a lot, and it's not good. It's also not a good example for Christ. So there was some shame in there too, but we dealt with that. However, here was the point. When he got out of it, he realized he's like, okay, something's going on. I got to do some self-examination. What's going on? When he took that break and he created that gap and didn't allow himself to fill it again with another female, he found that he idealized women. He put them on a pedestal, and he would have he would respond to certain things in a feminine way naturally. It would just happen, and he would put them in a place that they did not need to be. And he realized it was an issue, and he immediately was healed from it. And the reason he realized that he was healed from it was, and I know you have questions on it, we'll break it down. He was walking, and he saw, there's buses, and they kind of have them now, but not necessarily in Tampa. But if you go to Las Vegas, you will. There might be an attractive model on the bus. Yeah. He would see those and be like, wow, it would be great to be with a girl like that. That's what his initial thought process was. Instead, his thought process was, she's just a girl. Like, I don't know anything about her. Yeah, she looks good, but she's just a girl who also has problems. About her. Yes, like she's not a perfect human being, and we would never have a perfect relationship. Yeah. It shifts.
Something before I get into my question. Well, actually, I'll ask you real quick, and then I'll relate that last statement to something that I'm just passionate about right now. But basically, you were saying he would recognize feminine qualities in what were you saying?
So feminine qualities in himself. It could be something as like I went to the gym with someone, and we were working out, and I work out with people all the time. Yeah. And for whatever reason, when we were taking the plates off, the entire workout, she didn't take one plate off. And I didn't say anything about it. I thought about it. I'm like, I should probably just ask her to take. I'm sweating bullets here trying to go through this HIIT workout, switching off the plates to put heavier weight on so I can do my set, then taking off all the weights to put on the light weights so she can do her set. For 4 sets in a row on 3 different exercises. That's a lot of work. You work out yourself. Yeah. Right? So imagine doing that for the bench, and the whole time with me and you worked out, you never helped me. And I also never said anything to you. You just kind of stood there and watched.
So that's what he was realizing he started to do?
Yes, just displayed in a bunch of other ways. He wasn't actually stepping up or just being the masculine man that he honestly needed to be.
Okay, we'll leave it there. I'm going to dive into one quick thing, but I want to dive into the masculinity side of things. But basically, the thing you said is that he was idealizing women on buses, or obviously it's easy to come by models or super attractive Instagram models and idealize them, knowing nothing about them. And I think that's also, JP Pecluda talks about it a lot, is that's what's so toxic, bad in our society, super unhealthy, is this pornography, or even just the social media.
Yeah, pornography does that in social media.
It's idolizing women in a sense that they're showing men these extremely attractive, or these ways that women should look at this certain point in their life. And now men start to become, 1, desensitized because of this material, this content, but 2, they start to idolize only that's what is attractive, and not finding attractive. Well, in Proverbs 31, it talks about a woman who fears the Lord. That's good. But it says what? Charm is deceptive, beauty is fleeting. But a woman who fears the Lord is what? Is it? I don't know. I don't know how it ends. But I know exactly. But basically, and it's man, it's there's this false perception of what an attractive woman ought to be. Yes. But I guess before we dive into the next subject, I want to get your take on that, because JP talks a lot about there's a ton of the qualities you want to look for in the woman, and the first being that she fears the Lord with all of her heart, and that 100% I agree. But he's he uses his hand as a metaphor, and he says the middle finger stands for, you're able to communicate. You can communicate fast with it. It's kind of a joke he makes, but basically, the ring finger is commitment. I forget what the pointer finger is, but the pinky is attractiveness, and you want to find someone that's attractive. But he's like, but if you were living without a pinky, it's no big deal. You can keep going on. Versus a thumb is that she fears the Lord. You can't live without the thumb.
No, you can't.
But my thing with the attractiveness is, I've actually talked this with a lot of people, And you said it, like you're going to want to go approach someone if they're attractive. And so I've been battling, what if you do find a woman that fears the Lord, you're not attractive? What is your take on that? Because as much as JP says that, I'd rather wait 5, 6, 7. I feel like I personally would, attractiveness is part of a relationship.
It is part of a relationship. So I think this is where there's a bit of a pushback, and I'm in agreement with you on it, to some people's perceptions. And I'll say it, at least from my own experience. I've dated a woman that I wasn't attracted to, try to force it because we had a spiritual connection that I've never had with another person, and it didn't click. The idealization was it was actually me coming to that idealization understanding inside of that. And it wasn't that she wasn't attractive, because she still was, but she wasn't
attractive to you.
Exactly. Right?
Bro.
And I can't.
You can't explain it.
I can't explain that. I also tried to force it because I'm like, I've never had a spiritual connection with another person like this. We have a similar spiritual understanding. We eat the same solid food, and we have a lot of the same perceptions. We communicate well. Commitment would never be an issue. We have the same values. However, I'm not attracted to her, right? That was the only thing that was really missing inside of that relationship was the pinky. And now here's part of it. We're young.
Yeah.
We're young, right? So, maybe when I'm 50, I would see things different. The thing is, I'm not 50. I'm not 50. I'm not. And I'm okay with admitting that humbly, that I would like a woman that I am attracted to. And growing up, me and my best friend used to have the saying, if she ain't an 8 or above, you gets no love, right? And I don't, yes, people can have different opinions, right?
Yeah.
Foundationally, though, what I've come to realize from me, and I think this would help you at least a little bit, maybe, I'll love your opinion on it, is that attraction can never be the most important thing, and it shouldn't be the foundational thing that you guys build your relationship on. That is the Lord. That is the fear of the Lord. That is our thumb. Yeah. However, it is still part of the equation. It's still part of the equation in that I do want to be attracted to my wife, my girlfriend, who eventually becomes my wife, because, yes, maybe when she's older, she won't be as attractive. I kind of think she still will, though.
I think you'll grow. Yeah, and that attraction will last. Versus, I think for me, it's very hard.
She's not gonna get ugly though. Like that's like
not in your eyes.
Yeah, not in my eyes. And that's what I think the point is like, all right, so you asked me to date someone who I think is ugly, like, or I'm not attracted to at all, because physical attraction and spiritual attraction and mental attraction,
they all tie.
They do. One carries more weight for sure. Yeah, but it is not just one piece of the puzzle. Dating is extremely complex. They didn't have to do this 30 years ago. Dating wasn't what it is now. 20 years ago.
Well, in the Bible, dating is not even a thing.
No, it didn't exist. She's attractive. I'm going to meet the parents. I'm going to marry her.
Or it was arranged,
Exactly. Like, and the marriages last longer because the value there was just there. It wasn't a question at all.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know. I just wanted to pick your brain on that. But JP is very adamant about, you can kind of leave that attractiveness factor away if both people fear the Lord, but people are like just fully running after Jesus. And I think that could work. But do I really think you receive all the fruits of the marriage if you're not fully attractive? I really don't know.
I mean, and I think you have to be so this is something I like that we're doing right now. JP is a pastor, a speaker.
Yeah, so JP Pokluda, Jonathan Pokluda, he's a pastor in, I think, Waco, Texas, Way Church. I think he's at Way Church. He has a podcast called Becoming Something.
Beautiful.
He came and he was the last night of the revival nights at Radiant. Mm-hmm. He's huge, so the whole building filled up. Yeah. People were overflow. They were out the front of the building.
I actually think I've heard about this prior to this event. So he's famous in a Christian context to some degree.
Yeah, so he was living for the worldly things. He was, but I think in college he was saved, and now he's been preaching to young adults for years. He's done lots of marriage counseling, he's very well versed in the relationship aspect. Mm-hmm. But also his background is that he was dating his girlfriend before they both gave their lives to Christ. He was, I'm assuming, attracted to her. If you're dating before
there's some level of attraction.
Yeah. Well, no. Yeah. Especially before, you give your life to Christ, you're dating probably for attraction.
It's likely the foundation.
So anyways, but he's done all this marriage counseling. He's done all this. This is a little background on him. But my thing is, like, you're saying, yes, you've seen it work, and yes, you've counseled for it to work. But from your perspective, you dated someone you were attractive to, and you both came and were saved to the Lord at the same time. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I don't know. I just love to hear other people's opinions because I've talked to them about it.
This is the point I wanted to get across, is that a spiritual guide who obviously has a wealth of knowledge And I praise God for it, who's helped so many people come to light and step out of darkness and walk with Jesus in a deeper way. Praise God for that. As a man, and myself included, and you as well, we don't know everything. And this is where the value of self-examination comes in for every person. If a person gives an opinion, that's beautiful. It doesn't matter if it's the most famous speaker in the world, President Trump, Stephen Furtick, these big icons of the world that we look to for advice and understanding. They don't know everything. And their word is not bond. Exactly.
Yeah.
Jesus is a completely different example because this is God we're talking about.
Yeah, he knows
this
everything.
Is the truth. This is the source of life. He is the word. That's not the same as literally everyone else. And this is the example I always give. In the word, Paul takes time to correct Peter because Peter was incorrectly differentiating kind of legalism to do specific things and separating himself from people who walked in a certain way after Jesus had died, resurrected, and went back up to the Father in heaven. So having spent time with Jesus, seen him when he came back to life, been filled with the Holy Spirit, he was still making mistakes and guiding people in a wrong direction. Now, if Peter makes mistakes and needed a little bit of correction and did not know everything, though he knows a bunch, so can we. We don't know everything. And I used to also idealize pastors or spiritual mentors or leaders who had a way of thinking about things like, oh, all right, cool. So I would take something like that years ago, the old Zack would go, all right, cool. I just need to find a woman who I'm spiritually in tune with, and then I'll be fine. It doesn't even matter about attraction.
You take it with like absolutes instead of grain of salts. So that's what I've tried to take as grain of salts. But
And you self-examine. I love that it seems like one of the things the word calls us do, seek a multitude of counsel. Not a one of counsel, a multitude.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
That's cool.
That's good.
I'm glad to hear that because I want to just I like to hear other people's perspectives, especially on that aspect as we're both I'm back and trying like go on dates. I for the longest time I was just developing myself, growing in my faith. Now I feel like I'm ready to get back out there. I feel like I don't know if you're at that point yet.
Yeah, I mean for sure. I mean I'm definitely there. I have to do it so intentionally. I can't express
it's like
how
we have to
intentionally
make
I have
time.
to do it. Yes,
like,
I do, and I have to be smart about the way I do it. And right now I'm currently dating someone, and I think it's going well. However, it's in its proper place. It's not in a pedestal. It's not idealized. It's not my source of life.
It's not first.
It's not first,
it
right?
It never will be first.
Exactly.
Ideally.
And it can't. It literally can't.
Be.
Jesus is the head for a reason. Mm-hmm. Jesus is the head for a reason. So it needs to stay that way, and it needs to. When we were, I did and I had a beautiful opportunity to speak at a panel on a church last week, and
amazing.
We were talking about Christian relationships, and one of the questions was, should a Christian wife and a husband, or should a Christian dating, when Christians are dating, should they do wife and husband things for one another? And my initial response to that was, I mean, you shouldn't withhold your ability to take care of a person. Like if a woman wanted to cook for him or he wanted to cook for her, that shouldn't be an issue. However, it depends on what we have to categorize as wife and husband things.
Yeah, because if that leads to sexual things,
and which is a wife and husband thing.
Not at all.
What about moving in together? I would argue that's a wife and husband thing in a Christian context, pretty much everywhere. Yeah, right. Like,
what is your take on that?
I wouldn't do it because it'll lead to, you will have sex. You will. There's not a question about it.
Yeah,
if you're attracted to the person.
If you're attracted to the person, that temptation. It's like I was talking to one of my buddies at church the other day, and it's like all these boundaries you need to set. He's like, and it's good to think about because it's like next relationship you get in, if you don't have these boundaries set for yourself, next thing you know, like if you don't have the boundary that like you don't get in bed with this person, if you're really physically attracted to that person, it's going to be very hard to not like get into that temptation.
Very, very hard. I think it's Proverbs 25:28. It's becoming one of the verses that I really lean into, and I don't know it by heart, but I understand the premise of it and the thought process. A man without self-control is like a city, I'm close to it, like a city broken into and it's left without walls. So a man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls.
Yeah.
He doesn't have boundaries. He doesn't have an understanding or a control around himself. He just acts on a whim and acts on impulse. I don't want to be that man. I don't. So I need them. And I think you would agree with this. When we realize that boundaries are good for us, wouldn't we want, not necessarily more, but just make sure we have them intentionally?
Yeah. And that's what I think.
I mean, you're dating now. You have some boundaries already to some degree locked in the mind.
Yeah, I guess dating as in one date so far. But
okay.
But like start somewhere. It went good. She's a great girl. I don't know. I'm just so busy. It's like right now, it's like if I'm
Locked
dating
in.
someone, it's like everything has to fit, and I have to really like want to make time out of my day to like I like there isn't just time. It's like I'm making time.
You have to. Yeah.
So it's like I think you're at the same point. Like
100%.
a relationship now looks, well, one, because my life is centered through Christ, but two, because I'm not in school with like pretty much unlimited time when you look back at it. But it's like I have so much going on that I like literally like would have to cut out an hour or two out of my schedule for it to work.
And it would be in the schedule. Because
It would be in the schedule. Like everything is
well.
at this point. But I feel like if something isn't fully aligned or I'm not really wanting to go on that next date or make time, it's just not, it's not the season I'm in. So it's like go on that date. If everything in my body is like, oh, I really want to see this girl again, I'm going to make time. But for me right now, it's just like I'm navigating I'm just navigating it.
You're navigating it. And we figure it out along the way. It's never really just coming, I'm ready.
I had one more thought on what you just said, but I'm blanking on it now.
Was it The City Without Walls? Was it I know we were talking about masculinity.
Oh, boundaries. Oh, so like I don't know exactly what it was. Oh, yes, that's what it was. Okay, so setting boundaries is something that's important, but I think even more important is communicating those boundaries once you get into this relationship.
I think
once you start dating.
So I don't know if I told you this. I might have. Did I talk to you about 101 questions to get engaged? Okay, so the questions are penciled in my mind now. But what I used to do, I would go on dates and I would bring a book. It's 101 questions to getting engaged, right? Or 101 questions.
So you brought this on a first date?
Yes, I would bring
it on a first date. Do you not think that would scare a girl away?
Nah, yeah, it did, but it scared away the wrong ones.
Yeah.
And I've never really struggled with dating unless I was the person who was just like, I don't want to be with you. It's never been a problem for me for the most part. I'm a people person, so I can usually find a connection somewhere. However, if I'm going dating, in a sense, I'm looking for a wife. I'm shopping for a wife. I'm intentional about that. And at a certain point, I believe, for me personally, that was an issue because I was looking for a wife. I was searching for it.
You're not enjoying. That was the thing with Christian dating. People are really gonna be like, "I'm looking for a wife," and like that's the importance. Versus like, I think the perspective I changed to now is like I'm dating. I can experience things.
Yes.
And if I feel like this relationship from the Lord, if I feel like I really want to see this girl again, then I'll like doesn't need to be so much pressure on it. And I think most Christian people dating, I don't want to speak for all, but are like, they idealize one if they're walking in purity. It's like they idolize one if they've never indulged in like sex or they never had sex before. They're idolizing sex. They're idolizing the relationship versus really just like seeking growth with Jesus. And then when that comes, so that relationship becomes like a foundation of all they're trying to do is date and get married. And there's so much pressure from family, others, and to do that versus I think when you're dating, if you can just experience the other person and let it lead, like my mentor said, like let it have a life as its own, let it be as it is. You don't know whether that date's going to turn into your future wife, if that could just be a great friend, if that she could introduce you to your wife. You don't know. So when you kind of was like, let it be what it is, don't like, you're in the place to experience, not in the place to decide. And I was like, man, what a powerful thing.
I think that's actually that's a really great perspective. And it's interesting to me how complex dating is right now. And I don't think we give enough credit to how complex it is. And it's becoming infinitely more complex because of social media, because of our access to information and understanding.
Why hasn't she responded in 2 hours?
Yes. And it's like, we weren't even able to communicate this way. When I was in high school, it was like, I remember laying on the bed because one of my brothers or sisters didn't have the phone and I could finally talk on the house phone to somebody I was dating. And we would talk for like 2 or 3 hours. I remember laying up on my bed with my feet up on the wall and just talking about nothing. Half the time we'd just be chilling. We'd just be hanging out. But I only got to do that maybe once a week, and then I would see them at school, and that was it. But it was a healthy distance. We were able to get to know each other organically over time. Now, I was a child, so I didn't know what to look for, and that's all right. But it's even in the same context today, we have so much access to each other that the expectations can be easily misplaced, and it makes it difficult, especially for a guy like you, who I know your time, I don't even know if I would categorize you as busy. You're intentional with your time.
Yeah.
And where you put it matters. It's very
100%.
valuable to you. So if you're dating someone who doesn't value your time and where you put it, and there's a reciprocal relationship with that, you respect hers as well, it's not going to work. Why aren't you texting me all day? I'm editing right now. If I just continue to break myself out of kind of flow to text back, it's going to take me hours and hours and hours to get this done. And then when I'm hanging out with you, I'm now going to be distracted. Then I got work later because I didn't finish my job, my editing. And it's a whole trickle effect, which you understand, you're aware of. Yeah. And it leads to so much stress. And we have to take all of these things into account. And it's not easy because depending on environment, people are encouraging you to get married, which is a very healthy encouragement.
Yeah.
However,
it's beautiful, but don't force it.
Don't force it.
And so, yeah, that's the last statement I'll kind of say on that is like, you know, saying that busy factor is I like how you say it. It's like being intentional with your time because like I can almost guarantee you, unless you're like, you're rare, like 0.0001%, you're not too busy. You just aren't prioritizing your time. Like I will literally never say I'm too busy to someone now or like to something like I'm too busy for this. No, I'm not allocating my time to prioritize that right now in this season of my life.
Yes.
That's what I always go to. But you kind of hit on it when you were talking about on the phone. But so I really don't know anything about this subject with you, but you grew up with 9 brothers and 6 sisters.
Yeah.
I want to hear more about this.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so I grew up with 9 brothers, 6 sisters. 10 of us were adopted. All right. So myself, I was adopted at 7 months old. My birth name was Levante Ladon Cassell. I was adopted with my older brother, David.
From America? Were you
all in America. I believe I was somewhere in Cleveland. My mom, to my understanding, my birth mother was a drug addict to some degree. We were actually taken away, and basically, the way I describe it is God saved me. And also my brother.
You can't remember probably
not at all. Nothing. Like she was addicted to drugs, and there was ramifications for my brother and as well as me to some degree as a baby as we worked our way out of that because while we were in being birthed, she was still doing the drugs, right? And praise God for us to be able to come out. I'm a healthy human being for the most part that I'm aware of. And
I'd say for sure.
Yeah. And I'm so thankful for that. And I loved my life growing up. My mom obviously has a heart for children. She wasn't a perfect mother by any means, but she's an amazing human being. No one is. She's an amazing human being. You got 15 kids. 15 kids. That's a lot of kids, all right?
That's not a lot of kids. That's unreal amounts of kids.
It's unreal. And on top of that, as I was growing up, people would imagine like cheaper by the dozen type thing. And it kind of was because there was about 12 or 13 of us, I think, when I was younger. And then each year over time, my older brothers would move out or older sister, and they would kind of go off to college or do their life and whatever. And then they would have kids. But it was always older brothers who had kids. So I had nieces and nephews to play with consistently that were the same age as me. And we grew up together, and there was always something going on. I was never alone, and I was always extroverted. I talked to everyone. In school, I was friends with everyone, and I played sports.
You think that helped how many brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews you had?
Yeah, 100%. I think it allowed me to be me. I also have brothers and sisters who are more introverted and maybe not as outgoing as I am. However, because it's just different personalities, to some degree, eventually realized that I built an unhealthy attachment to needing other people because I was so used to never being alone. Then I had to learn how to be alone, right? Which trickled into relationships and wanting to be with a woman so I could fill that void. But, I mean, my childhood was so much fun. My parents were absolutely amazing. My dad would always take us camping. We always had something to do. We drove around in a giant van whenever we went on family trips, and I have nothing but great memories from it now, even though it wasn't always perfect. And we grew up in a huge house. Every single Christmas, we got everything we wanted. And then one year we didn't. 2008, my dad got laid off from his job. And for years, I've never seen a person work so hard for the family in my entire life. It was the most perfect example of a man laying down his life for his family. Yeah. And which Christ calls us all to do in that sacrifice. And he would go out all day and just submit applications. But my dad's old. He's in the 70s plus now. Then he was still in his 60s. So it's like, how do you get hired when there's a bit of a recession going on right now? And
just the way.
It's just the way. It's like, all right, you have all these qualifications. You're also 60. So probably can't work as fast. And you're not going to be here that long. And we also are losing people. We're not gaining people because of the economy. So it was tough. It was tough for years. We went from Christmases getting everything to Christmases literally getting nothing. But it did teach me I don't really need stuff. I don't really want stuff. Just sucked a little bit for a while.
Yeah. I think that realization, I mean, I guess you got to realize it earlier than most people. I think I've kind of realized it the last honestly, a couple months, is this, I was always desiring for the materialistic things.
Yeah, consumerism is
And
dangerous.
I don't know if you saw my story the other day, but I was just kind of, I was just thinking, and I ended up posting something, but it's like, it talks about the arrival fallacy. So the arrival fallacy is basically when you get this, then you'll be happy. And so my buddy actually introduced that term to me, but I like it a lot. So it's like, for the longest time, I was like, when I'm this successful, when I get this much money, when I get this car, when I'm in this relationship, then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Or when I fix this OCD, then I'll be happy. And it was always this when if, till finally, man, I don't know. I think it's just like giving my life to Christ and finding so much joy just pursuing him. None of that stuff will ever make you happy. And it's finding that joy, those small wins, those celebrating moments every single day is what will bring you happiness, joy, fulfillment. And so I think you have to get taught that lesson a little earlier, or it probably took a while, but
yeah, the seed was planted. It took years to really
maybe like look back and realize it, because